Russell Wilson also going to make some odd history in week one. He's going to become the first quarterback to start a game against the team he won a Super Bowl with, while now playing for the team that he beat. Wilson led Seattle to that blowout win over Denver 9 seasons ago, 43-8, when Wilson topped Peyton Manning. All right, let's get a little GM roundtable going. Scott Pioli and Rick Spielman are here, and let's start with some veteran quarterbacks like Russell Wilson that are getting a new start elsewhere. Rick, I'll start with you. You've done some research on veteran quarterbacks switching teams. Some have worked out, some have not. Can Wilson do what Peyton Manning and Tom Brady did and win in both places?
Yeah, I think that's why Denver went and made this move. They gave up a ton of draft capital. He just got a new extension, and they did this for him to win Super Bowls. And if you look at guys his age, Matthew Stafford's the most recent one that went on from, and LA traded for him, and he won a Super Bowl last year for the Rams coming from Detroit. We talked about Brady and what he did for Tampa. So I think all the expectations are there of Russell Wilson doing the same thing for Denver.
Rick, it's going to be interesting because, you look back at Russell Wilson's career in Seattle. His best seasons was when the Legion of Boom was doing their best work. It was during the seasons, during the Legion of Boom era, where Russell Wilson was able to rely on his really, really strong defense. It was a defense that was consistently ranked in the top 3 to 5 in terms of overall scoring defense, but they were also in the top of the league in terms of creating turnovers and really good field position. As a matter of fact, the year that they won the Super Bowl under Russell Wilson, by the way, they had the best defense in the league and caused the most turnovers in the league. So Russell Wilson's strengths are really accentuated when he has a strong defense. It's going to be important to see how well that Denver Bronco defense plays this year. This is an interesting topic because, Rick, I know you did a bunch of research on this and shared it with us. Watching how some of these veteran quarterbacks perform in their second job really has to do with a lot of the team around them, unless it is the rare or super rare quarterback of Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, who really did a lot on their own.
Yeah, it's a great point, Scott. And Rick, you can follow on that too.
Yeah, just real quick, because I think Denver has one of those type defenses. They have Nick Chubb rushing the passer. They went out and signed Randy Gregory. Nick Bonito, who they drafted in the second round this year, I think will help him. And the guy, I think that raised a lot of eyebrows at camp this year was Baron Browning, who they drafted in the third round, who was a middle linebacker, who they moved to the edge. And they got, Surtain, who may be one of the best young corners in the league right now. So I think that defense will support what you're saying.
And then, Rick, there are quarterbacks, veteran quarterbacks getting new starts that didn't exactly light it on fire their first stop, like Mitch Trubisky, who led the Bears to a couple playoff runs but didn't live up to the hype as that top 5 pick. Marcus Mariota kind of in the same boat. They are both going to get starting opportunities, at least to begin the season. But we've seen quarterbacks like that, Rick, have success recently, like Ryan Tannehill, who went from Miami to Tennessee, where he's been a really solid quarterback the last few seasons.
Yeah, and I think Trubisky has the best chance out of both of them when he went to the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason to kind of emulate what Tannehill did for Tennessee. Pittsburgh has a very good defense. They have a very strong running game. They have some playmakers around on the offensive side of the ball. I think that they are more talented of a team than Atlanta is right now and what Mariota is walking into. So I could see a lot of those comparisons, and I can see Trubisky going in and doing something similar to what Tannehill did with the Titans.
Rick, I think that's a great point. I go back to one of the personal experiences, and I know this is a long time ago. I'm going to talk about a player by the name of Vinny Testaverde, who was a top pick, Heisman Trophy winner, came into the league, didn't have a lot of success with the Buccaneers because he was on some really, really bad football teams. But then we got Vinny at the Cleveland Browns, and when the Cleveland Browns moved, well, first of all, with the Browns, he took us to the playoffs. He had a better team around him, better players, a better defense, better coaching. And certainly when we went to the Baltimore Ravens, he did it again. Then we took Vinny with us when we went to the New York Jets, and he took us to the AFC Championship. So again, a lot has to do with players who are drafted high and maybe don't start out with a very strong career because they've got a bad football team around them. We may see some of this again with these players we're talking about right now.
And as you guys mentioned, it's all about that team around you. And as Rick said, Trubisky probably a better opportunity to succeed than Marcus Mariota, who has a rookie quarterback behind him as well. Let's move to the San Francisco 49ers. So fascinating here all offseason, really wondering what's going to happen with Jimmy Garoppolo. They keep him. It's a one-year deal, restructured contract. He's going to back up Trey Lance, at least to start the season. But Rick, what kind of an impact might this have on Lance, and what have the discussions been in the front office about that?
Wow, I was taken back by this a little bit. I know from a front office perspective, you're talking with the coach, and it sounded like they weren't anticipating Jimmy G coming back. Then all of a sudden something flipped, and they put so much draft capital to get Trey Lance ready. And now with Jimmy G back in the building because he didn't practice with him, he didn't go to meetings because they thought he was going to be gone. He was rehabbing his shoulder. Now he's back in there. They say all the right things in the media about, hey, it's, Trey Lance is saying it's great to have Jimmy G back. But what happens when a team starts to struggle? What happens if Trey Lance starts to struggle? When not only are you going to hear it from the outside and people yelling for Jimmy G because they took him to the conference championship last year, but what about the veterans inside that locker room? And if Trey Lance comes out struggling, do they start going to the head coach and talking to Kyle about, hey, we got a team that is built to win now, and we think Jimmy G gives us the best chance. So that puts a lot of pressure, a lot more pressure on Trey Lance with Jimmy G in the building.
But you know what, Rick? I think pressure is good sometimes because, as you know this very, very well, the job of the general manager and the head coach is to make sure that they have as many good football players in the building as they can have. They need to have cohesiveness, but they need to have as many good football players as possible, because what that does is that breeds competition. And if you're building your team the right way, you're going to have players in there that take on the responsibility and the competition and are invigorated by it. And if they're bothered by it, that's a problem. Then you probably don't have the right guy in the building. So this, to me, is a bit of a windfall. The fact that he took a pay cut, Jimmy G talking about taking a pay cut, and now they've got two starting quarterbacks on their roster. If something happens to Trey Lance, God forbid, they've got a starting quarterback sitting there. So it may end up being a positive situation if something bad happens, whether it's an injury or if Trey Lance doesn't play up to the capacity that they believe that they can. Again, if one of your core values is competition, this is terrific. And sometimes players respond very, very well to competition and to pressure. But if Trey Lance is going to fold under the pressure of having Jimmy G behind him, he may not be the quarterback that they thought he was.
Well, the 49ers are in Chicago to start the season, but they are not there yet. The Patriots, though, are already in South Florida ahead of their matchup Sunday with the Dolphins. Now, New England has struggled, especially over the last decade down in South Florida. They've lost 8 of the last 11. Bill Belichick today on what's different this season.
We've been away for a week during the season multiple times in the last few years. So if it works out, it can be a good experience. I think this will.
Did you know as soon as the schedule came out that you wanted to get down here to kind of get used to this heat?
Again, we'd look things over and see what our options are.
And so they got in here yesterday, Scott, and you were part of a Patriots team for a long time that came down here, and you actually had a winning record against the Patriots. I don't know what happened when you left. They started losing down here. What do you think about Bill Belichick coming down, 5 days early for this game?
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. Bill's looking for something to be different because what they've been doing hasn't been working out the way that he wants. As Bill mentioned this is not that different in terms of teams going out for a week before or spending a week before a game away. They usually do it when they're headed west and they are changing time zones. Bills just made the decision to go down this, even though they're in the same time zone, to go down a little bit early. And I'll say this, even though we were 5-4 against the Dolphins when I was there with the Patriots, here's the thing, what I do remember, in September, when you're playing those games, it isn't just the heat, it's the humidity. And again, the way that it sucks things out of players and what it does to them in terms of not being acclimated to the weather and the temperature, those extra couple of days mentally may help this football team against the Dolphins.
The one thing we always looked at was when New England came down, or any team came down, especially in September, we were going to be in the white jerseys, and we wanted to make sure that the opponents were in the dark jerseys because that really absorbs the heat as well. So. But I think Coach Belichick is trying to do something to change up because they haven't had success down there in Miami. And if you look at last year, Miami was 2-5 against playoff teams, and both wins came against the New England Patriots. And Coach Belichick, maybe that's the team that he has had the most trouble with, especially on the road down there. So I'm sure he's looking at to change something up in how they're practicing, how they're getting adjusted to the heat, how they're getting adjusted to the humidity, to hopefully go out there and play better than they have in the past.
You know, I think one of the other reasons we may have been able to have a little bit of success during those first 9 years against the Dolphins was the fact that the baseball diamond was still out there, and we actually played better on dirt than we did grass.
Don't have to worry about that baseball diamond anymore this season. That game, by the way, is on Sunday as the Patriots kick off Week 1. Patriots still the last franchise to repeat as champions back in 03 and 04. And if the Rams are going to be the first to do it in nearly 2 decades, it's going to be a job for Matthew Stafford, presented by Jiffy Lube. Stafford pretty much has all of his weapons back. He's swapped out OBJ for Allen Robinson. But the Rams, right now, not even favorites to win the NFC. That would be Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, and you've got the Green Bay Packers there as well. Last decade was the first time in the Super Bowl era that we haven't seen repeat winners. The Packers were the first to do it, Super Bowl I and II. The 70s and 80s gave us multiple repeat champions, but none in the 2010s. What about the 2020s? Well, Scott Pioli was in the Patriots front office when New England won those back-to-back titles. Scott, I feel like you're asked this before every season. It's kind of like the Dolphins of the 70s popping the champagne cork. What did that 04 team have that no other defending champion has had since?
I think one of the most important things that we had that people don't talk about enough was veteran leadership within our locker room. Those championship teams that started that dynasty, there was veteran leadership in every single position room where it wasn't just Bill's mandates that came down to the players. It was players holding up one another accountable on a level that was very, very rare, in my opinion. You know, one of the interesting things that I hear people talk a lot about is the hunter has now become the hunted. There's injuries. There's all of these things that are true and have something to do with it. But to me, something that's behind the scenes that doesn't get talked about enough is the football operation, meaning the coaches, the general manager, the front office. All of the football operations people are trying to move on towards the next season. They want to forget about last year. You're telling your players, don't think about it. But then on the business side, you've got a little bit of a house divided because they are trying to optimize the championship from the year before. They have the ring ceremony. They have parades. They have, when the season starts, they want to have a celebration that includes a video and raising a banner. You're telling your players to not pay attention to that. You've got a roster that's 20% turned over, guys that weren't even there the year before, but the business is trying to sell the last year's championship. And sometimes, if not managed properly and respectfully internally, that conflict can bleed into the locker room and distract the players unknowingly.
Yeah, Scott, you're taking on the human element, but let's look at what the Rams have had to deal with this offseason. It was Aaron Donald right after they won it. Is he going to retire? Is he going to get a new contract? So that was a little bit of drama. He finally got a new contract. Sean McVay, is he going to go to the media and make $20 million doing Amazon, or is he going to stay as the head coach? They lost Von Miller to the Buffalo Bills, which is going to be ironic watching that game tomorrow night. Matthew Stafford, is his elbow healthy or is it not healthy? They lost Andrew Whitworth to retirement, and can Noteboom come in? And the only thing they really did this offseason, in my opinion, was just add Allen Robinson, who I think is going to be a weapon for Matthew Stafford. But everything that you're talking about, and talking about the front office side and talking about the business side, trying to build up all the hype and letting the banner down before that Buffalo game, they had a lot of issues to deal with this offseason, and hopefully that's not as big a distraction to the team from the outside.
Rick Spielman, Scott Pioli, a little GM roundtable. We're going to do it each and every week here on CBS Sports HQ leading into the NFL, which you can watch Sunday on CBS. We've got a bunch of games for you. The doubleheader. We talked about that Patriots-Dolphins game. Patriots coming down 4 or 5 days early to prepare. It's going to be sweltering for that early afternoon kickoff at 1 o'clock Eastern time. You got the Baker Mayfield Bowl as his Panthers take on the Browns. And then in the late afternoon, we have 3 AFC West teams in action. The Chiefs on the road against Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. And it's a rematch of that amazing Week 18 playoff-esque game, the playoff play-in game between the Raiders and Chargers. Raiders won that last season, got into the postseason, but this time it's in LA to start the season against Justin Herbert and that revamped defense.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.